What's up, my crypto legends? This is the Bitcoin price on the daily chart, and this right over here is the S&P 500 in 2011. There are some very similar movements that we are doing now here for Bitcoin, and I want to show you how the next coming days and potentially a week or two can be very, very bearish, pushing us all the way down to the $38,000 or $35,000 in the worst case scenario, and then having a massive run up, breaking all-time highs in the next coming months before the end of the year. I'm going to show you why in this episode, so stay tuned. Hello there, Andy here. Welcome back to another episode of Bitcoin Consensus. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe daily TA on Bitcoin cryptocurrency. I also do live streams to connect with the community. I'm not a financial advisor, so don't buy or sell anything that I say. And if you do so, do your own research. Let's dive in, guys. Remember, we do have a Telegram group for the community. Okay, I do hop in there sometimes and discuss different technical analysis with the community, and we also have an alerts channel, so you can get posted one of the first ones on the different news and also technical analysis that we post on the Bitcoin Consensus website. So let's take a look at the Bitcoin price on the daily, and I'm going to show you, this potential fractal that happened on the S&P 500. We are making very, very similar movements. Okay, now let's take here the last three peaks, all right, from the Bitcoin price right over here. And then we had a massive drop. As you can see, we did start to create here after the all-time highs this lower high. So let's go back to the S&P 500 in 2011. This was in between March and July, so very similar dates also here on the S&P 500. Let's take a look at these potential three peaks. All right, higher highs right over here, and then this lower high right here before we had this massive drop. This is on the S&P 500 in 2011. So after this massive drop, okay, let's just check out the movements here with the S&P 500 and the Bitcoin price. We did have this massive drop after creating this lower high, right? So now let's take a look at this right over here, this consolidation that we had for a few months. We did have the same consolidation, but it was a little bit more volatile on the S&P 500. As you can see, up and down, up and down. We did have that spring point here getting below the capitulation phase and then having that massive run up to the upside. Now let's take a look at the Bitcoin price, because the Bitcoin price didn't have that much volatility to the upside, but as you can see right over here, we just about went below the $30,000, having that potential spring point before having this massive run up. This is what happened on the S&P 500. As you can see, there's a lot of very similar movements. What we can also see here on the Bitcoin price is that we did have this peak over here, as you can see, before we had that distribution phase. And if we go to the S&P 500, there is a peak right over here also, just before we entered that distribution phase. Now if I take, okay, from this peak all the way an extension with these higher lows, as you can see, you can kind of find out that this has been kind of a head and shoulder pattern, right, with that massive drop. Now let's take a look at the Bitcoin price and connect this peak over here also with these higher lows, and there is something very, very similar. Okay, if we kind of get this peak, okay, connecting this higher lows, and you can clearly see that we had a massive rejection here on this resistance. So something very similar here for the Bitcoin price, a kind of head and shoulder pattern, dropping below and now getting rejected from this neckline here, turning it into resistance. Same scenario here on the S&P 500. Now what happened right over here? Why did we get this rejection at this resistance point? It's because of this neckline, but also if we did take the drop from the last peak over here, from this last lower high, right, from the top all the way to the bottom, you can clearly see that we did hit the 78% Fibonacci retracement just right over there. Now let's take a look at the Bitcoin price from the last peak, this one right over here, which was round about the $60,000. If we do take the top all the way down to the lower part, you can see also that the price of BTC hit the 78% Fibonacci retracement. Now, a lot of coincidence here, a lot of very similar price action. Remember, the chart is just sentiment of the people. It doesn't mean that we are going to do the exact same, but we could have that very similar scenario. Now, everybody has been very, very bullish for the last couple of weeks, okay, the late July and all the month of August, okay, almost hitting, that $53,000. Now everybody's a little bit scared, and I think the situation is going to get a little worse in the next week or two. Now, if we take a look at the S&P 500, okay, let's get all of this out of the way for the moment. And from the low part here on the S&P 500, from the spring point, if you wish, to the top, you can clearly see that we did hit the 62% golden pocket on the Fibonacci retracement right over there, exactly before we had that major run up, as you can see, breaking the neckline here from this kind of a head and shoulder pattern. Now let's take a look at the Bitcoin price, because the Bitcoin price from the low part here below $30,000 to the top of above $52,000, you can clearly see now that we are getting several bounces at the 38% Fibonacci. So what we can expect right over here is having that major drop to the 62% levels, just like what happened with the S&P 500 here in late 2011, having that massive run up and then dropping all the way down to the golden pocket ratio, right? This could actually happen if we do continue and make this very similar price action for Bitcoin. Now, the worst case scenario, I do believe so, if we did not get stopped here at 38% levels, sorry, the 62% levels, we could drop to the 78% levels, and this would be the exact bottom where we'd have that massive bounce and still continue to the upside. This is what I see in my opinion, okay? Very similar price action and movement here on the S&P 500. Now, this is what I got, guys. This means that we should be breaking all-time highs in about November or potentially December at the latest, because at this lower part right over here from the 25th of November here, breaking the all-time high in the S&P 500 in 2011 was round about in February. So it took round about 2 or 3 months, in between 2 and 3 months, to break that all-time high. And if we did manage to break all-time highs, you know, from September, that means October, November, somewhere between November and December, we will be breaking the 65k levels if we were to make very similar price action than the S&P 500 in 2011, 2012, guys. This is what I got for today's episode. Just a quick, you know, look at the S&P 500 and the very similar price action, you know, with the Fibonacci, the head and shoulder, neckline, retracements, something very similar, something to pay attention, guys, because remember, if we do go all the way down to the $38,000 or $35,000, we're going to see a lot of bearish people calling for those 20k levels that they were calling when we had that massive drop back in May. So this will be the time to become extremely bullish, and I will be informing you on what I'm going to do, my trading on Bybit or on PrimeXBT. So make sure to stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, and if you haven't checked out the Bitcoin Sensors website, we've got the latest technical analysis and news here. We've got exchange reviews where you can find out the best exchanges with the best bonuses and the best fees. Totally free information down below in the description. If you haven't seen my Bybit or my PrimeXBT tutorial to learn how to trade on those platforms, video on the screen right now. Thank you, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.